Thank you, Steve. Boker Tov. After listening to the distinguished guest from Israel, I got a feeling, A, that we on election eve, B, that I think I made a very good decision 40 years ago when Danny mentioned why it's important to have Likud and Kadima and Israel Beitenu. I said, well, I did one thing I did correct. I joined the most important organization, the IDF, which is by far more important. I definitely am not a politician. I spent my last 40 years as defending the decision of my political bosses. Some of them are here. And I think, justifully so, we are a democracy. And I don't want to elaborate on the political challenges that Israel faces right now. I do want to say a few sentences about the security from a national defense standpoint, challenges that I think we are facing today. First of all, I think the nature of war, from a professional standpoint, the threat that we face is a bit different, and it's important to understand it. When I was a young lieutenant during the Yom Kippur War, it was quite simple. We had to mobilize. Early warning was very important. But once you mobilized, you went to the field, you saw the borders, the minefields, the fences, the strong points, you raised your binocular, you saw the division, you adapt your plane, attack, defense, and et cetera, and execute it. More importantly, all the events take care in the battlefield. Today, war is different. We still have some of this, but it's different. You still need to mobilize. Then you go to the field. Where is exactly the field? Where is exactly the borders, the trend, the minefield? Where is the fences? It's not clear. You raise your binocular, you don't see any division. Where are the bad guys? Within urban area, underground, hiding behind civilians, then without uniform. So what about the military plane? Once you try to locate your enemies, I mean, there are all kinds of devices flying above your head, exploding on civilian in Israel. Even winning and losing was different. In '73, losing was more significant than today. And we have to understand this, I think, to anyone in the Golan Heights and in Sinai was very clear what would happen and what would be the outcome if a Syrian tanks column will pass the Golan Heights. It's about Hula Valley and maybe Afula, about real losing, the sovereignty, being conquered by a foreign military. Today, it's not the case. It's a bit different. With all due respect to Hamas and Hezbollah, they cannot conquer the Galilee and the Negev, which is, I think it's a good sign. On the other hand, the entire country is part of the battlefield. We change the way we should organize. We need to plan and capabilities that we need. And we have one military. How you make this military relevant to this new asymmetric, sometimes, as it's called, type of war. So I think that's what we are struggling right now with. But let me tell you, I think you can trust the military that he is doing the right adaptation to meet this different type of war. But from a strategic standpoint, leave the Iranian aside for a minute, just for a minute, our military threat is declining, is not increasing. It's not, don't understand me wrong, it's not fun to have this rain of missiles, but it's no comparison to being conquered by a foreign military. But it's required different capability, much better intelligence, understanding that we cannot rely on the defense only. I think Iron Dome and all the ballistic missile defense capabilities that we have, and we do share, I want you to know that we do share a unique architecture of ballistic defense system on 4 layers. And it's amazing, an amazing technology. Not just the arrow, the Iron Dome, the David Sling in between. It's an amazing technology. Think about a capability, in the case of the Iron Dome, when you hit a device with about this size, 6 kilometers above the Earth, on a speed of almost together 3 Mach. That's amazing. Unprecedented technology. But we cannot rely only on this defense. As small and tiny as Israel is, we cannot cover Israel with a Iron Dome and to expect that all the missiles will explode on the top of it. It's impossible. We cannot do it, not just economically, practically. We should be able to have the offensive capability to deal with this nature of threat. And that's required the capability and the understanding that we are not able to do it only on the defense side. This is one of the changes that I think we are dealing with. Maybe later on in the panel I'll elaborate more. The other issue is the change of the landscape. I think that's a tectonic move in the Middle East. And I'm referring to what's called, I think mistakenly, the Arab Spring. It's Arab, but not spring. I think it's an Islamic... I think it's, more correctly, it's an Islamic storm. And the one lesson I want you to remember, and I think it's important both to our political echelon and to the military as well. And I'm referring to the fact that we didn't see it coming. And if it's any comfort to you that neither the head of state and our colleague in Egypt, they didn't see it coming. It means that we have to be ready in the future to an event that we don't really predict. And that's in the case of the Arab Spring. It's not just about having a good intelligence. We cannot know what the other intelligence know. We had a visit of Omar Suleiman just 2 months before the demonstrator occupied Tahrir Square. Then the question was, if you recall, who is going to replace Mubarak? He was ill then. And he basically drew 2 scenarios. One, if Mubarak health will allow him, he will continue to the middle of 2011, where they have the election, and his son Jamal will be elected. And if his health will not allow him, probably myself, Suleiman, I'll take his place until the election, and then we will have the election, and his son Jamal will be elected. And someone in the room asked Suleiman, how do you know what will be the results during the election? So Suleiman said, in Egypt it doesn't important how you vote, is important who counts the vote. So, in Egypt, not in Israel. Well, he was dead wrong. 2 months later, it happened to be that he was wrong. And I'm talking about the second powerful man in Egypt, the guy who is responsible for the intelligence and all the mukhabarat, secret services, etc., etc. And the change influenced Israel. I don't want to speak about the entire countries, but just a few sentences. Egypt is a source of concern. I'm not suggesting that tomorrow morning we will see a major shift in Egypt relationship with us, but definitely the rhetoric and maybe the other situation will gradually change. And it's not for the good. We must admit that although Mubarak was not a Zionist, but he was an anchor of stability in the region. And we don't really know what kind and nature of government and a political body we will see in Egypt. Egypt is occupied with a lot of problems. They have to get their house in order. They don't control Sinai. They have problems on the border. But it's a different Egypt for us. So I think we have to be ready to make the necessary change if it's needed in the case of Egypt. And Egypt is important because usually in the region, Egypt led the example for the entire Arab world. I think it's important because for the first time in the Arab world, you see what you see. What you see, it's not derived from what we call the usual suspect. Israelis, the Zionism, the Israeli-Arab conflict, the big Satan, the small Satan. It's really represent a genuine and fundamental desire in each country, and it's different from each country. So I think they are going to be changed forever. Nobody really knows what direction, but definitely for the immediate future, instability and uncertainty is going to increase, and we have to be ready for that. Syria, in my eyes, represent an opportunity, and I tell you why. It's not because I like Assad or not. It's not because the devil we know or not. It's because if Assad goes, I think any regime that replaces Assad will not be an ally and as supporters as Assad regime to Iran and Hezbollah. I think we have a potential, if Assad toppled down, to alliance change in the region. Iran will lose its most important, only state ally in the region. Hezbollah will be more restrained. I think there is a mistake in understanding how important Syria is to Hezbollah. Most of the weaponry that Hezbollah possesses is coming from an Syrian depots. The money is coming from Iran, but the weaponry is coming from Syria. And after the Iranian and Hezbollah intervene in what's going on now in Syria and with all the blood that has been shed, I don't think that any government in Syria will support Hezbollah in Iran as Assad did. And for us, I think it's a good news. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. I think the international community, in its response to what's going on in Syria, basically, I think Assad understands it as a license to kill. I'm sorry to say, but that's the way he gets the message. Nobody really cares about what's going on. Besides rhetoric, nothing on tangible and pragmatic action on the ground happening. In Syria, we must understand the situation is different. 40% of the population are minorities: Druze, Kurds, Alawites, and Christian. The last thing they want is a religious government, like Muslim Brothers. They enjoy the freedom of religion today with the Alawites. So beside the economic sector is sitting on a fast, and there are Sunnis in Aleppo, And it started differently in Syria than other places. It started in Dara, which is a dusty, sleepy, small town in the periphery of Syria. It was not started in Damascus. And it's a fighting about life. Unlike in Egypt, where the population is more homogeneous, in Syria, there was not going to be any peace between the Alawites and the Sunnis. So the Alawites really fighting for their life. And we will have to see what happened. But I don't think, people ask me, okay, what would happen if we have a Muslim brother government? They will start or try to do something against us. After all, we had the quietest border in the Golan Heights for the last almost 40 years. Well, I think we have the quiet border in the Golan Heights because everyone in the Syrian military knows the real balance of power, the military balance of power between us and the Syrian military. I think the reason why the border is quiet is because they understand the potential outcome from a military engagement with the IDF. That's why it's quiet, not because of anything else. Definitely, and I'll end here, definitely the most, I think, challenging potential threat that we are facing right now is the nuclear one. And let me say that I think it's not just about nuclear, it's about this regime. I think we simply cannot allow this regime to have a military nuclear capability. We have to do everything we can to prevent it. I think the preferred strategy should be to do everything beneath the radar, and I read here and there all kinds of stories, in order to slow down the pace of the program. Then to increase the sanction. I think the sanction is important part of it. Nobody really knows whether the Iranian will change the course of action. It did happen in the past. We must say that. And that's intelligent. In 2003, I want you to know, when President Bush just announced that the Americans are going to Iraq, they did stop the program. They didn't want to be the next target. Unfortunately, 2 years later, when they saw that it's not that bad, they restart the program. So it's not unprecedented. They might think about it. But in order to do this, I think we need a crippling sanction, much more severe sanction. My concern is about the sanction is whether too late and too light. We can move on the sanction. Definitely should be supported by a military, credible military option, which is on the table. I think we must have it. I think we still have time. It's not tomorrow morning. It's better to persuade our friends in the region and the world that it's a global threat. It's not just a regional or Israeli problem. And I think this government did a good job in this. It's much better to have unified and joint efforts dealing with Iran. But in any case, Israel must has its own capability to deal with this threat. We simply cannot allow to live underneath a Iranian nuclear umbrella. I think everyone who's considering this scenario understands that it's something that we cannot and we should not allow. Thank you.